All right, all right. Shalom, shalom, family. Shalom to everybody in the building. As you come in the building, family, thumb up the video and share the live stream so that we can get it started, so that we can get things popping. How's everybody doing out here tonight out there in YouTube world? How's everybody doing? All right. I definitely got a banger for you guys tonight. Something came across my table. In fact, if I could mention this person by name, I was messaged earlier this evening in regards to a video presentation which was done where my name was mentioned, and the person asked me to take a look at it. And so, by all means, that's exactly what I did. And upon looking at the video, shout out to my brother Iman Prophet. I see you, my brother. Shout out to my brother Iman Prophet. You hit me up at about what time you hit me up? 1:34 p.m. He says, Shalom, Mark. Check this video out, but make sure you start it at 47 minutes and 10 seconds in. So you know me, I'm human. I started it at 47 minutes and 10 seconds in. And sure enough, when I started, my name is mentioned immediately. And so now my undivided attention is warranted. And I noticed the two faces. One face I know more because we've had one-on-one dialogues. Vocab Malone, peace to you, sir. And the other person is Dr. Michael Heiser, famously known among theologians as a proponent of what is known as the divine counsel theory. The divine counsel theory. Now, I'm not sure why exactly it was thought that it was a good idea to mention my name in this video. But I do know, as Vocab Malone rightfully said, he said, Zion Lexx is probably going to have a response to this. Wait on it. And so I didn't waste no time, but you know, time is precious. So I continued doing what I was doing. I was actually in King's Plaza with one of my twin daughters. You know, we was outside painting the town red and enjoying ourselves. And so we continued to enjoy our day. We had a daddy-daughter day. Shout out to my twin daughter, one of the twins, Sarai. Shout out to you, Sarai. Yeah, so we was having daddy-daughter day, and when I saw this, and I wanted to respond immediately, like from the car, but we having daddy-daughter day, so I took the time to enjoy my day with my daughter. We see each other every damn day, but it's a special moment when a black man has the opportunity to, you know, show up and show out, you know, for your daughters. And my daughters just turned 17 years old this past February. And so, you know, they're coming of age, as it were. So I make sure that I'm vibrant and I'm always present, you know, for everything. And even though we see one another every day, I make sure that we are always very, very close. So at times we go out and we do things. And so I decided upon coming home this evening to deal with the topic at hand. And I got to let you guys know that the topic at hand is an interesting topic. You have Dr. Michael Heiser. I'm going to play the video in a couple of moments, and I'm going to give commentary as the video is playing. But Dr. Heiser seems to be interviewing Vocab Malone, as Vocab Malone seems to be prepping him on the Israelite community and what we're about, the intricacies of it. Because in the realm of Christian theologians, Vocab Malone is probably known as the better known to go guy when it comes to dealing with the Hebrew Israelites because of all of his interactions in the Israelite community. And so, for that reason, they met. And I couldn't help but notice some things immediately. But before I say them now and ruin it, we're going to roll that beautiful bean footage. So here we go, guys. I'm going to play the video for you live, and I'm going to give a live commentary. All right? The section that I cut out is only 25 minutes long. I didn't cut out the entire video. But we will comment on that which we can hear and observe. So ready or not, here we go.
That makes perfect sense.
You're getting it. You're getting
Yeah.
it.
All right. So what else?
Perceived authorities. So if you're in a camp, these men are prophets. They call them elders and apostles.
Sure.
GMS always opens up every video saying double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. So the perceived authorities within the camp, but also some transcend camps, meaning people who are considered important, or works that are considered important by all people.
How do they get that status? Is that
And just to be clear, I wasn't aware of this video at all. There's a lot of things that I do with my time. Most of my time can be seen in my background. This is most of my time. I'm mostly reading and trying my best to mind my business. I really do try my best to read and just mind my business. Or as the song goes, I drink water and mind my business. Shout out to those of you who know soca music. And so something was brought on my table, so I said I got to respond to it. But as you can see on the screen, the same comment that's on the screen right now is the same sentiment that I had. You couldn't pick a worse name to drop. Why pick the brother who got the bloodiest sword in the Israelite community?
that makes perfect sense?
You're getting it. You're getting
Yeah.
it.
All right. So what else?
Perceived authorities. So if you're in a camp, these men are prophets. They call them elders and apostles.
Sure.
GMS always opens up every video saying double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. So the perceived authorities within the camp, but also some transcend camps, meaning people who are considered important, or works that are considered important by all people.
How do they get that status? Is that also visionary, or is that attributed to them by the community?
Well, every now and then you'll see someone who picks up a little bit of real Hebrew knowledge, and they can teach basic Hebrew grammar, and they like to do. Sometimes they start doing gematria.
Is this real Hebrew or their version?
It could be me, y'all. It could be me. But when Vocab said, some of them actually do pick up real Hebrew and they actually learn, grammar. And then some of them, they start doing things like gematria. At that point, I automatically knew my name was next, because who else in the community do gematria except for me? And so I automatically knew that my name was coming up, because who else in the community talk about gematria other than me? I'm literally the one who introduced the concept in the community, meaning in the public eye. Surely we had elders, especially in my community, that have been doing it for a long, long time, even before I was born. But bringing it to a big platform and telling it to the world, you're literally looking at the only person who did that, me, yours truly. And so because of that, I said, all right, my name is about to come up. And so, I'm a keen listener. I listen to people genuinely before I attempt to respond. Because if you listen with the notion that I'm already forging and forming a response, then you haven't really listened. And so one of the things that I got from listening to this dialogue is the continual great respect that Vocab Malone truly has shown me. I have several videos on my YouTube channel where Vocab, in a sense, has gone out of his way to show his respect for me. And I appreciate that. But I still have to say that I belong to that same community, that same group that he has a tendency to lump in one bag. And again, because I'm a really, really great listener, I do hear him trying to make distinctions. He does. Even his book, Barack Obama Against the Hebrew Israelites, he subtitles it One West Israelisms. Whatever that is really supposed to mean, I'm not sure, Vocab. But he makes it clear that he's really talking about the One West splinter camps. But I just got to tell you something, Vocab, that, maybe you haven't heard directly from me before. You see, one thing about an Israelite is that we are an Israelite because we are living descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And as such, I got to tell you, even a bad Israelite is still a goddamn Israelite. So when I hear people make these distinctions that, it's really the One West splinter groups that overdo it. It's really those One West Israelites that, represent the cult. I got to tell you, the stones that you throwing at them, they still landing on my feet. And I got to let you know, in the words of Rudy Ray Moore, don't let me tell you about the story about the badass lion that stepped on the feet of the signified monkey. That's some Dolomite for you in case some of y'all too young. And so I gotta say, because I know and I understand perfectly that no one, no person, and certainly no group is perfect. Even a bad Israelite is still an Israelite. So even I am cautious with the way that I condemn or critique my fellow Israelites, because even a bad Israelite is still a goddamn Israelite. And so what that means then is, you might have been right to call me an apologist, although I don't really like the etymology. I don't like the etymology. I understand what an apologist is. Someone who stands in defense of an idea, an ideal, right? Who speaks out or who writes out in defense of something. I get it, but I got to tell you, I don't like this whole word apology in that respect. But I will call myself a defender of Torah and a defender of God's people. And I got to tell you, when you throw rocks at God's people, you're going to have a problem with me. Because I don't typically see a lot of these Christian apologists attacking Christian extremist groups. So then it dawns on me, pause, that somebody just got a hard on for the Hebrew Israelites. Because where's the book entitled Vocab Malone against the KKK, who, by the way, describe themselves as a Christian group. Where is the book entitled Vocab Malone against the skinheads? Because many among them identify themselves too as Christian. But y'all got all this energy for the Hebrew Israelites. My apologies. The black Hebrew Israelites, right? So then it just dawns on me that maybe not you, Vocab Malone, because I don't know you personally enough to say this, but your track record is questionable, because it's becoming apparent that you and many like you may just have an issue with black men and women calling themselves the chosen of God and being very unapologetic about it. And so because that kind of talk puts a lot of people in their feelings, you see people jump out the window and want to battle and do attacks. But I gotta let y'all know, my address ain't changed since the time I came into the Israelite community, nor has my personal phone number. So if you're feeling froggy, god damn it, then jump, because I'm ready to debate yesterday. I'm ready to debate tomorrow. God damn it, I'm ready to debate right now. But I'm gonna let the video play out because, like I said, Vocab, when Vocab talks about Israelites, he goes very hard. And when I talk about Israelites, critiquing my fellow Israelites, I can go hard as well. But I just gotta tell you, Vocab Malone, even a bad Hebrew Israelite is still a Hebrew Israelite. And as such, I gotta let you know that the way we feel is we all family. So when we go hard, pause at one another, we get a pass. But when you jump out the window and attempt to go hard on one of us, it's your ass.
The Hebrew or both.
It's weird. What happens? What I've seen is when one Westers learn real Hebrew, which is kind of rare, which is really, really rare. They're discouraged to do it. They kind of become ambivalent about Lashua and Kadash, and so they have a weird relationship with their own roots. But non-One West Hebrew Israelites who aren't attached to Lashua and Kadash, sometimes they do learn Hebrew. Okay. And when they do that, they like to do gematria. So sometimes they become authorities because of some of their Hebrew knowledge.
For the sake of our viewers, gematria is just quick
assigning. You're probably better at it than I am.
Well, it's
assigning numbers to the characters and getting hidden meanings out of it.
Yeah, numerical value to letters and doing the math.
Yeah. So sometimes there's a guy who I respect. So he'll probably watch this. This is not shade to him. Like I don't agree with some of his practice, how he gets there, but I respect him as a man, and I respect a lot of what he does. His name is Zion Lexx, and I've had friendly conversation with him.
What you said that man name was? What you said that man name was that you put a lot of respect on? Say that again. What that man name is that you said you put a lot of respect on?
You're probably better at it than I am.
Well,
You're
it's
assigning numbers to the characters
right.
and getting hidden meanings out of it.
Yeah, numerical value to letters and doing the math.
Yeah. So sometimes there's a guy who I respect. So he'll probably watch this. This is not shade to him. Like I don't agree with some of his practice, how he gets there, but I respect him as a man, and I respect a lot of what he does. His name is Lexx, and I've had friendly conversation with him. He knows a lot of information. Like he's if you wanted to watch an able apologist for Hebrew Israelism, you know, than I am.
Well,
Hey, I just gotta say this, Vocab. Don't get in your feelings. You say you know me, so you should have tough skin when you mention my name. Because if you know me, you know I'm unpredictable. But God damn it, man, I hear a whole lot of stuttering as you mentioning my name, and I say rightfully so. Because you should know, I'm not gonna play with you at all.
it's
assigning numbers to the characters
right.
and getting hidden meanings out of it.
Yeah, numerical value to letters and doing the math.
Yeah. So sometimes there's a guy who I respect. So he'll probably watch this. This is not shade to him. Like I don't agree with some of his practice, how he gets there, but I respect him as a man, and I respect a lot of what he does. His name is Lexx, and I've had friendly conversation with him. He knows a lot of information. Like he's if you wanted to watch an able apologist for Hebrew Israelism, you know, some of the things I'm talking about, even though they're more common on the street, they're not necessarily the best Hebrew Islam has to offer. Someone like Lexx would be someone who would be more formidable. You watch, it's like, oh, he's making some good points there. And again, doesn't mean his religion's right, but
means he's a little more attached to data that are real.
He is. And so again, I mean,
what did you just say? Michael? It means he's a little bit more attached to data? You see, it's that quasi, that half-stepping condescendence shit that I don't like. Because if you feeling some type of way about us, just go ahead and say it the way you really feel it. He's what you mean, Vocab, is he's one of the ones that is possibly more attached to data. Let me tell y'all something. And when I say y'all, I'm talking to Michael Heiser. When I say y'all, I'm also talking to you, Vocab Malone. The condescending attitude and the hard-on that you and many like you clearly have for the Israelite community at this point is getting actually pathetic. And I'll tell you why. You know, when I first encountered you, Vocab Malone, I treated you with respect because that's Torah. Torah teaches me to respect a person and believe who a person says they are until they show you otherwise. And I gotta tell you, I'm not sure how much I believe you at this point, because you are making at this point, let me rephrase. You are making a career out of attacking what you call the Black Hebrew Israelites. And I think that that's pathetic, because I'm an author 5 times over. I disagree with the notion that many among European Jewry who describe themselves as Yehudim or as Jews, I disagree with that notion in many cases vehemently. But I don't need to make a career attacking them in order to be seen and heard by people. I can stick to the information. I can stick to empowering my community without having to degrade others to build myself up. And it's unfortunate and it's sad that we live in a generation where people are bent on attacking others in order to build themselves up. And so at this point, I got to tell you, Vocab, that you're stepping on my toes. Because you have attacked my community time and time again. You have interviewed others who are more scholarly, acclimated than yourself, and have also used them to attack my community. And it is for those reasons now that you are under fire and you will be attacked intellectually. And so I'm going to tell you right now, I usually reserve some punches when dealing with some people. But I'm going to just let the punches fly where they fly as I comment on this video. Here we go.
I'll give Zion, I don't mind giving Zion Lexx a shout out. Like if you watch him, you say, okay, because sometimes if you see a guy like that, a lot of what I'm saying won't seem to apply because you're like, well, this is not what Vocab was talking about. I'm talking about the common man on the street. He was like the guy at your job.
The guy you're going to run into the street.
Yeah, like that. But you do sometimes see that. So they become authorities when they do that. But books as well, not just people living right now, even though this author is still alive, Rudolph Windsor. This is sort of the book of the book because what it does is offers them an entirely different alternative history that props up their understanding of how they got where they got, and different things like that. But the book itself is not well sourced at all. Just I'll show you a leap in logic first.
Time out. You didn't just mention one of my elders, Rudolph R. Windsor, an esteemed author of many books, one being the more famous From Babylon to Timbuktu, which you're holding, and you actually fix your face to actually say that his book is not well sourced? Oh, we're going to have to fact check that live now, will we? We're going to have to fact check live that claim because I am one of the people who actually know this elder one-on-one. I am one of the people, I am among very few in the community who has actually met him. He knows me. I know him. And so I take great offense to your statement that his book is not, as you say, well sourced. And so what I'm going to do right now in this moment is I'm going to pull out his book and I am going to see whether or not what you're saying is true. Is this my elder that you're talking about here? Rudolph R. Windsor? Is that not me and him at his congregation, Temple Bethel, in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love? And so while our elder has already reached the age of 90 years old, he might not be able to respond to you. But I can tell you that I could respond to you because in many ways he sees me as a protege, someone who has came up and benefited greatly from a lot of the information that he has shared, and equally feels tasked with carrying the baton and continuing the great legacy that great men like himself has set in the Israelite community. And so it's for that reason that I'm going to have to call you out on this, because people shouldn't be able to make empty statements that go without being fact-checked. And so here we go. I have the book. I actually had the original. I no longer live with my parents, but my father had the original. Most people know this cover, the yellow cover. But for people who bought this book in the 70s or the 80s, the book is originally green. It was on my bookshelf in my house since the 80s. Let me open up to the back of the book, where you say there are no sources or is poorly sourced. And I gotta just tell the people that a book that he describes as not being well sourced, the sources on the book start on page 137. Okay? He has notations that start on page 137, and his notes carry great citations. It continues from page 137 to page 150. It continues from page 137 to page 150. So he has 13 pages of notes on every single chapter in the book with citations as well. The source material starts on page 150 and it ends on the next page, 151. But if I can list the authors by name for a book that you say is not well sourced, let's see. The first source he lists is The History of Ancient Tribes and Races in Asia, Africa, and Europe by Joseph Deneker, The Races of Mankind. The next source he lists is a famous source that many academians and even theologians alike go to. That source's name is Herodotus, and the book is entitled The History of Herodotus. He also quotes another well-sourced author by name Flavius Josephus, otherwise known as Josephus Flavius. The Life and Works of Flavius Josephus. He also lists Frederick Ratzel, The History of Mankind, Clark Ridpath, Universal History. He also lists Herbert Wendt, It Began in Babel. He lists a book entitled The Jews in the Political and Economic Life of Medieval Islam by W.J. Fischel. He also lists How the Great Religions Began by Joseph Gare. He also lists H.A.R. Gibb, Law and Religion in Islam. He also lists The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire by Edward Gibbon. He also lists A.I. Catch, Judaism in Islam. He also lists I.J. Irwin, Judaism and Islam. The History of Africa, including the Sudanic Kingdoms, Travels and Discoveries in North and Central Africa by Heinrich Barth. He also lists James Henry Breasted, History of the Ancient Egyptians. In fact, due to that listing, it's the reason why I have the book. A History of Egypt by James Henry Breasted, which I picked up because of the citation in Babylon and Timbuktu. He also lists A History of a Continent, Africa, A History of a Continent by Basil Davidson. He also lists African Kingdoms, The Lost Cities of Africa, Boston and Toronto, Little Brown and Company. He also lists Timbuktu the Mysterious by Felix Du Bois. He also lists J.A. Roger, World's Great Men of Color. He also lists the histories of the Black Jews of Asia, Africa, Spain, and Portugal. Travels to Discover the Source of the Nile by James Bruce. Alan H. Godbey, The Lost Tribes, a Myth. A History of the Jews by Solomon Greatzel. The History of the Jews of Spain and Portugal by Chaim Elias Lindo. Travels and Research in South Africa, David Livingstone. A History of the Marranos, Cecil Roth. Travels in North Africa, Nahum Schloss. Published by the Jewish Publication Society of America. And finally, he lists Hebrewisms of West Africa by Joseph Williams. So I just got to ask a simple question, how many sources does a person have to list in order to warrant a book as being well sourced? When you say his book isn't well sourced, Vocab, are you alluding to the amount of sources that he mentions? Because he mentions over 24 sources. And if it's not about the quantity of sources, which I would respect, because you could write a book with 100 sources. If all the sources are horrible, the book is not well sourced. So are you talking about the quality of sources? Because if so, he certainly named some major heavy hitters in academia, in history, as it pertains to migration of Jews in places namely like Spain, Portugal, North Africa, and West Africa, the history of Jews. He named some very important heavy hitters. So we'd like to know, Vocab, in your next video response, because I know you will be responding. We'd like to know if it's the quality of his sources. And if so, I invite you to come on this platform and have a one-on-one discussion with me in qualifying either or both the quality and quantity of sources in the esteemed elders book from Babylon to Timbuktu, Rudolph R. Windsor, our esteemed elder. But I'm going to let the rest of the video play, and I'm going to give commentary when necessary.
Okay.
And if this is too much, cut it out or something like that.
It's not that we've not seen any of those already.
Right. So they're talking about ancient black civilization, chapter 1 in this book. It's called From Babylon to Timbuktu, by the way, by Rudolf Windsor. This area was also the location of the Garden of Eden, and the people of this region were jet black. So he's talking about the original folks being black.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird thing to use the jet black.
Jet black, yeah.
Turn the page. Because the Garden of Eden is associated with the land of Ethiopia, we can conclude that the people were black. So let me read that again. Because the Garden of Eden is associated with the land of Ethiopia, we can conclude that the people were black. So,
all right. So let me comment on that. So you guys see that brief pause that he gave and Michael Heiser gave when he read verbatim from Rudolf von Windsor's book. And he said that we can conclude, based on the location of the Garden of Eden being adjacent to Ethiopia, that the people were black. And then he played the sound of birds chirping, chipping in the air. So I feel obliged to defend the honor of our elder. And I'm going to put my name and my honor on the line doing so. And I pose an open challenge to Dr. Michael Heiser, as well as Vocab Malone. You show me when Ethiopia ever been a white civilization. You show me. Because in your every attempt, if you dare attempt, to show that Ethiopia can be argued and debated as to whether or not it's white or black, for every source you show that makes this topic debatable, I will show you 20 for every one. For every one source you show me that says that Ethiopia is arguably white, I will show you 20 European sources that say it is emphatically black. So what we talking about here? The elder wrote in the book, we can conclude due to the location of the Garden of Eden that the people were jet black. And he mentions Ethiopia because Ethiopia forms one of the 4 riverheads, of which the Garden of Eden is bordered by. And so I ask you, Dr. Michael Heiser, and I ask you, Vocab Malone, to show me any citation. And I offer, in the guise of a debate, for you to prove to me that those 4 river valleys that border the Garden of Eden were European civilizations. And so I, for one, and when I say one, I mean in unity, because there are many that stand with me, agree with our elder, Dr. Rudolf Windsor, that due to the location of the Garden of Eden, the Bible's mention of those river valleys that border it, we know for a fact that the people in that region are people you would describe today as jet black. I stand with my elder. Israelites, do you?
There's numerous problems
Right.
and just that tiny little sentence. Well, the whole book is like that. Like I've got all the little places of the list.
I'm still stuck on how you get Eden associated with Ethiopia. But
so they do it. I think
I'm gonna play that back, but is this guy Michael Heiser a PhD theologian? And he just said, I don't know how they got Ethiopia associated with the Garden of Eden. Did you actually say that on live TV? So since you're saying you don't know, God damn it, I'm gonna show you. Oh, I got time today. Thumb up that video and share the live. Support the platform. I got time today, family. Thumb up the video and share the live. I got time today.
Still haven't tried the Locklicious all natural hair care product line? Well, let's hear what the Lock community has to say about it.
I love how it sprays and how it feels, you guys. Like, it feels so good. And it smells amazing, you guys.
The Lock and Twist moisturizer was really good for me. The hydration mist was phenomenal.
This is bomb, baby. I was really impressed, kind of blown away, and I think that if you're struggling, definitely go check them out.
And check out the 5-star reviews on our website. So, what are you waiting for? Go to locklicious.com to start treating your crown like royalty.
All right. You say Dr. Heiser, and I just want to make sure that we are hearing him correctly. So before I show and prove, we're going to play that footage one more time just for clarity, because what I don't want to do, which a lot of people have a tendency to do, is misrepresent or misquote people's opinions, views, and statements. So I'm going to play back that quick piece and make sure, for clarity's sake, that we heard Dr. Michael Heiser clearly say, and I don't know how he got the Garden of Eden to be associated with Ethiopia. I don't know how. Let's play back that beautiful being footage for clarity.
Associated with the land of Ethiopia, we can conclude that the people were black. This area was also the location of the Garden of Eden, and the people of this region were jet black. So he's talking about the original folks being black.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird thing to use the jet black.
Jet black, yeah.
Turn the page. Because the Garden of Eden is associated with the land of Ethiopia, we can conclude that the people were black. So let me read that again. Because the Garden of Eden is associated with the land of Ethiopia, we can conclude that the people were black. So there's numerous problems in just that tiny little sentence. Well, the whole book is like that. Like I've got all the little places of the list.
I'm still stuck on how you get Eden associated with Ethiopia.
Okay, Dr. Heiser, I think we heard you. If everybody heard Dr. Heiser say verbatim, I'm still stuck on how he got the Garden of Eden to be associated with Ethiopia. I want you guys to put some 1 or fire emojis in the chat room right now, on the live chat, as I help out Dr. Heiser with kindergarten level biblical studies. As I help out Dr. Heiser with kindergarten level biblical studies. All right, I'll help you out. We usually do this with the children in the Hebrew class, but I'll help you out. A river issues from Eden to water the garden, Genesis chapter 2, verse 10. And then it divides and becomes 4 branches. The name of the first is Pishon, the one that winds through the whole land of Havilah, where the gold is. The gold of that land is good. Bidulum is there, and lapis lazuli. Verse 13. The name of the second river is Gihon, the one that winds through the whole land of Cush. And in case you're unsure of our ability to, look at the language and do this, I'll read it in the Hebrew as well, Dr. Heiser. Weshem hanagar, ha-sheni Gihon, hu hasovev et kal eretz Kush. I'll read it again in the Hebrew. Weshem hanaar, ha-sheni Gihon, hu hasovev et kal eretz Kush. Weshem hanahar sheni, and the name of the second river, Gihon hu, hasovev, which surrounds, et kol eretz, the whole land, Kush. Well, let me guess. You don't know what Kush is, huh? Let me guess. You don't know what Kush is, huh? Well, I just clicked on the Hebrew word Kush, and it brought up the dictionary. And if everybody looks to the right of the screen, not only does it say Kush, but it relates in the dictionary that Kush is black. And so they say when you dig a grave, be prepared to dig two. And in case we're going to play the game that Kush is not associated with Ethiopia, allow me to bring you to the seventh entry in this dictionary. And I'll do it step by step. The first entry in this dictionary shows that Kush is black. It's a noun, proper name, masculine, right? The third entry says it's the name of a Benjamite mentioned only in the title of Psalms 7 and 1. So an Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin is called black or Kush in Hebrew. But let me guess, Michael Heiser, that was based on the color of his eyes or his hair? The son of Ham, 4, and the grandson of Noah, and the progenitor of the southernmost peoples located in Africa. Or the dictionary draws a correlation between Kush and sub-Saharan Africa. The fifth entry says the people descended from Kush. I'm going to just go straight to the seventh, which says the land occupied by the descendants of Kush, located around the southernmost parts of the Nile, i.e., Ethiopia. So at this point, family, it's probably necessary to roll back that footage once more to hear a PhD scholar admit publicly that he doesn't know why anyone would associate the Garden of Eden with Ethiopia. Let's play that beautiful bean footage again, shall we?
Good thing to use the jet black.
Jet black, yeah.
Turn the page. Because the Garden of Eden is associated with the land of Ethiopia, we can conclude that the people were black. So let me read that again. Because the Garden of Eden is associated with the land of Ethiopia, we can conclude that the people were black. So there's numerous problems in just that tiny little sentence. Well, the whole book is like that. Like I've got all the little places of the list.
I'm still stuck on how you get Eden associated with Ethiopia.
But so they do it. I think he does it with the rivers. This area was also the location of the Garden of Eden, and the people of this region were jet black. So he's talking about the original folks being black. And it's such a weird thing to use the jet black. Turn the page. Because the Garden of Eden is associated with the land of Ethiopia, we can conclude that the people were black. So let me read that again. Because the Garden of Eden is associated with the land of Ethiopia, we can conclude that the people were black. So there's numerous problems in just that tiny little sentence. Well, the whole book is like that. Like I've got all the little places of the list.
I'm still stuck on how you get Eden associated with Ethiopia.
Okay, so once again, we heard the PhD scholar, Dr. Michael Heiser, who at this point sounds more like a fringe scholar, repeat once again that he doesn't understand why he, referring to Rudolph Windsor, would refer to the Garden of Eden having any relation to Ethiopia. Well, Dr. Michael Heiser, that's based on a simple reading of Genesis chapter 2. You are a PhD theologian. I'd like to think you've at least read the book of Genesis. And in verse 13, the second river that borders the Garden of Eden is said to be the one which goeth around the whole land of Cush, which is Ethiopia. And that's why our esteemed elder statesman, Rudolph R. Windsor, draws the correlation and parallel between the Garden of Ethiopia and the Garden of Eden. Or shall I say the land of Ethiopia and the Garden of Eden. And just in case you're still saying, because apparently basic information challenges you, which makes sense in light of the fact that you teach and preach that divine counsel stuff. Oh, don't get me started. I want all the goddamn smoke. So, in case you're still confused as to the association of the Garden of Eden, Ethiopia, and black skin, well, I already showed you now sufficient evidence in the Bible for why there is an association with the Garden of Eden and Ethiopia. Now I will show you sufficient evidence in the Bible that talks about the skin color of the Ethiopians. Throw up the video, family, and share the live stream. Also, guys, don't forget to support the platform. that will always and has always jumped to the front to defend the Israelite narrative, name, time, and time again. Show y'all support for the people who really, really be on the front line defending you. And so we're going to go to Jeremiah. We're going to go to chapter 13. In the book of Jeremiah, chapter 13, as we approach verse 20 and eventually reach verse 23, there's a significant mention of Ethiopia there that I'm sure you've read before, but I'm even sure you'd love to neglect. Which I understand. Because when you feel you have no relationship to something, people tend to shun it, downplay it, or marginalize it. What does this verse say? What does this verse say? This verse reads, Be'ivrit, Ha Yahapoch Kushi Oro We Namer Kavar Bu Rutal Gam Atem Tuklu Lehitiv Limudai Haurea. Can the Cushite change his skin? Haya hafok kushi oro. Can the Cushite change his skin color? And just so we're clear, Cush is not the only black people mentioned in the Bible. Cush is not the only people who would be regarded as black or colored. Even among the Ishmaelites, you have a descendant called Kedar, which also means black. And so the reason why the Bible says in relation to Cush, can he change his skin color? Because unlike other black people and nation states mentioned in the Bible, Cush is the blackest of them all. And hence, he would be considered, in today's colloquial use of language, jet black. And that's why Rudolph R. Windsor said, because of the location of the Garden of Eden and its association with Ethiopia, we can conclude that the people were jet black. Now, I'll go out of my way, Dr. Heiser, to continue to help you out with kindergarten level Bible knowledge. Just give me a little bit more of your time. I got you. This one's on the house, buddy.
But
So they do it. I think he does it with
rabbit
the
trail
rivers.
there.
Good thing to use the jet black.
Jet black, yeah.
Turn the page. Because the Garden of Eden is associated with the land of Ethiopia, we can conclude that the people were black. So let me read that again. Because the Garden of Eden is associated with the land of Ethiopia, we can conclude that the people were black. So there's numerous problems in just that tiny little sentence. Well, the whole book is like that. Like I've got all the little places of the list.
I'm still stuck on how you get Eden associated with Ethiopia.
But so they do it. I think he does it with the rivers. Page 23. Because the colored people of the world are in a majority, it is proper to infer that the whites have always been a minority and that the black people are the original people of humanity. So the main problem, I think, there's the last sentence, that the idea that black people are the original people of humanity, and it's weird how he gets there.
Well, Vocab Malone, since it might be apparent that you guys don't accept the Bible, because you both found it hard to see the association between Ethiopia and the Garden of Eden, something that the children in our Shabbat or Sabbath school learn by the time they're 7 and 8 years old. Since you guys are struggling a bit with biblical commentary, I'll just give you a little science. So we have something in science called the out of Africa theory. Which posits that all human beings have their origin in Africa. And in fact, Dr. Heiser and Vocab Malone, the oldest bones of any human being found was Lucy, also known as Dik Nesh, dated to 3.2 million years old, and she was found in Ethiopia. This is easy work. I didn't have to do any prep and study for this. I just said that when my time frees up, it's lights, camera, and action.
I'm going to read one more from page 25.
Sure.
Therefore, the leprosy that Naaman had will cleave unto you and unto your seed descendants forever. And he departed from his presence a leper as white as snow. This type of leprosy affected the reproductive organs, genes, and chromosomes that determine hereditary characteristics in his body. And I'll show you who's talking about here in a second. This meant all his children would produce white offspring, even though he was a black man at first. This was the curse of Gehazi. I always mispronounce it. Gehazi. Yeah. So basically, lepers equals whites. They're accounting for the origin of white people.
Right.
So that's how he does it. Now, not all Hebrewites do that, but that is a really common move.
Sure, yeah.
But I mean, just that.
Well, I got to say to you again, Vocab Malone, you see, contrary to the very racist notion behind the Hamitic myth, the Bible has never taught that a human being can be cursed by their skin turning black. That's a Snapple fact. Like, you could open a Snapple bottle, twist open the cap, look at it, and it's right there. And so that's kindergarten level information. That the Bible never describes anywhere someone being cursed with black skin. However, the Bible does mention in numerous places people being cursed with white skin. And so, whether or not Rudolph R. Windsor's position that all white people emanate from some eponymous ancestor who was a leper, whether or not that's actually true, the point to hone in on still and understand perfectly is that in the Bible's teachings, in the biblical text, white skin is deemed as a curse. Miriam's skin turned white because she reviled God and Moses. And let's be clear, I'm not a colorist. I'm not hung up on color, but what I am hung up on is the truth. And so I know and perfectly understand that a righteous man is not a black man. Meaning that is not the criteria by which we measure righteousness, the amount of melanin that a person has in their skin. Righteousness has always been measured in the Bible by the amount of desire and will that one has towards the service of God Most High. But because I am still a teacher of the truth, we're going to still have to speak the truth. And so the Bible makes it clear that there are times and people that God had issues with spiritually, and the Bible says he cursed them with leprosy and their skin turned white. Now, you don't have to like that part of the Bible. I understand it. Everybody has a part of the Bible that's more of a favorite than others. But I gotta tell you, the moment you say, I believe in the teachings of the Bible, whether you like it or not, you simultaneously signed up for the truth it conveys. Like it or not.
Sentence is incredibly tortured.
Well, yeah, that's being kind.
The whole book is like that.
Okay.
And it doesn't source. There's a place where he literally says, the Bible dictionary says. It actually says the Bible dictionary.
Okay.
What? Smith's,
Yeah,
Easton's,
yeah, no, there's-
Cambridge? So the Bible
There's only 50
dictionary.
or 60 of those.
So that's the way the book is sourced, but they'll read.
Okay. And so once again, I'll jump out the window and I'll defend Rudolph R. Windsor. In Rudolph R. Windsor's comment about leprosy as being a skin affliction that turns people's skin white, he says the Bible dictionary says, which rightfully so is a blanket term, no distinction, no uniqueness, no author, no specific book, but he simply said, the Bible dictionary says. But the reason why he said the Bible dictionary says without having to mention any one dictionary is because all of the Bible dictionaries agree unanimously that leprosy is an occurrence where the skin turns white. You big ass dummy. And so blanket terms are used when it covers a vast amount of space, ideas. If it can capture an expanse that is diffuse and vast, then we can certainly use and employ it. Common sense ain't so common, huh?
read it publicly, they'll hold it up, and you know, they just give Windsor a pass.
Yeah, I won't even ask if they get into like peer-reviewed journal literature because that seems kind of obvious.
No, but there's a guy who's claiming he's going.
And so let me deal with this right here. He says, I won't even ask whether or not they deal with or read any peer-reviewed literature. And so I have to say this. Somebody got to say it. It needs to be said, God damn it. When we use and employ the term peer, let's break that down really quick so we can understand. The term peer can be used in several ways. The term peer can refer to someone of common background, lifestyle, character, environment, like your friends and the people you grew up around. They can be described as your peers. The term peer also can be used to describe a static action, like peering into someone's work, looking into someone's work, or inspecting someone's work. And so generally, when academia employs and uses the term peer review, they speak of scholars belonging to the same community and general academic schools of thought who have and possess similar knowledge that can comment and either validate or invalidate one's information as presented in a book, an article, or a speech. The only problem with that in our community is that we have been, since the inception of America, an extremely disenfranchised people. And as such, we are not treated fairly. As such, there has never truly been a track record of American collegiates and academians being sincere and genuine in reviewing and peering into the works of Black American authors. And as such, many of us go on to produce books that are peer-reviewed within our own communities. Among our own scholars. Scholars who have such intellectual integrity that they won't play with the pages of the Bible and act as if, I don't know why, one would make an association between the Garden of Eden and Ethiopia. Well, God damn it, the fact that you can say that is the reason why we don't play with y'all peer reviews, because y'all really not about reviewing our work. You're really about condemning our work before you even read our goddamn work.
Gonna do that. So I'll name drop him too. He'll take this segment and put it. Divine Prospect. I don't really like calling him that. It's a little strange, but Ron Shields. But I know he calls himself Divine Prospect. I don't mean as disrespect to want to call him Ron Shields.
Yeah,
anyways,
I'm betting I know what journals he's going to pick already, because there are
really?
There are a couple that were created just to reinforce like the Afrocentric view.
Really?
Yes. There are a couple of journals that exist only
And shout out to our brother Ron Shields, aka Divine Prospect. And what's interesting, as they're giving a brief take now on Divine Prospect, he presents Divine Prospect, Vocab Malone presents him as someone who definitely deals with peer-reviewed work and makes an emphasis on going through the peer review process. And then Dr. Heiser takes another jab and says, I bet you I know which peer review sources Ron Shields will use, because there's a group he really want to say black people who have created their own peer review community to have their work reviewed there. And so I bet you that's who he more than likely uses. But as I told you, the very need to do so is created by the fact that we are disenfranchised. As I told you, the very need to do so is born out of your biased attitude towards Black American African scholars. And so you're validating exactly what I'm saying. And what's interesting now is you're actually revealing your hand. One thing you're going to learn about me, Dr. Michael Heiser, is while I might not have a PhD, I am a master of observation. My ability to read and observe is remarkable, nothing short of remarkable. And having said that, I gotta tell you, you said earlier that you're not familiar with the correlation that could be made between the Garden of Eden in Ethiopia, but you seem to be very familiar with a segment of Black theologians who see the Bible through the lens of Black thinking, yet in the same breath tell us you're unfamiliar with these correlations. And so I came up with a mama who didn't like too much. She didn't like too much people. She didn't like too much of anything. But one thing she always used to say, and she for damn sure didn't like, are people who speak with a forked tongue. You know, a snake. Because on the one hand you say, I'm not sure why such an association would made. Who would do that? Why would anyone do that? Who? Why? Where? On the other hand, you come back moments later and admit that you are aware of Black theologians and their Afrocentric spectacles that they see the Bible through. Yet you say you are unaware of these correlations. Where I'm from, that's called speaking with a forked tongue.
Prospect, I don't really like calling him that. It's a little strange, but Ron Shields, but I know he calls himself Divine Prospect. I don't mean as disrespect to want to call him Ron Shields.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I'm betting I know what journals he's going to pick already, because there are
really?
There are a couple that were created just to reinforce like the Afrocentric view.
Really?
Yes. There are a couple of journals that exist only to perpetuate that idea.
Wow.
And in other words, they have the veneer of scholarship and peer review, but basically the only people that review the articles are people who already, adopt that idea.
Well, I didn't know that exactly.
Well,
What's
What's interesting for me the most here is he says very colorfully that in reference to this quasi-circle, and we know who he's alluding to, black theologians, who go to their own for peer review. He says they have the veneer of scholarship, the appearance of scholarship, but not quite so, because they don't really allow for everybody to critique. They just deal with people who pretty much think like them. Well, Dr. Heiser, the peer review that you use have people commenting with names like Goldstein, Silverstein, God damn it, Wyatt Earp. And so you are guilty of the very same thing you are saying, because we know that the majority of the peer review that you go through are from people who look just like you and think just like you. So what gives you the goddamn right and audacity, I almost said caucasity, what gives you the right, the audacity, and the caucasity to allegate to us that we can't use the black peer review? Just say it for what it is, goddammit, because that's what you're saying. While you can use and draw from the right peer review. Where I'm from, that's called speaking with a forked tongue.
Seems kind of obvious.
No, but there's a guy who's claiming he's going to do that. So I'll name drop him too. He'll take this segment and put it. Divine Prospect. I don't really like calling him that. It's a little strange. But Ron Shields. But I know he calls himself Divine Prospect. I don't mean this disrespect to want to call him Ron Shields.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I'm betting I know what journals he's going to pick already, because there are
really?
There are a couple that were created just to reinforce like the Afrocentric view.
Really?
Yes. There are a couple of journals that exist only to perpetuate that.
Family, make sure that you throw up the video and share it live. Family, throw up the video and share it live. I'm going to share the live stream link in a couple of moments to have Ron Shields, if he's available, somebody reach out to our brother Divine Prospect. If Divine Prospect is available, I'd love him to join this live. In the meantime, family, we're going to run a quick commercial break. Throw up the video, family, share it live, and make sure you support this platform. Somebody get Ron Shields, Divine Prospect, in the building. I'd love to have him join in on this live stream.
I wash my natural hair and my face with the same product, because natural hair care is easy. Natural skin care is easy. Don't make it hard.
All right. Moderators, I'm going to put the live link in the chat room. If you could share that periodically. Moderators, if you could share this live link in the chat room periodically, that'll be greatly appreciated. I'd love to have our brother, Ron Shields, Divine Prospect, join us. If he's unable to join us, that's fine. But I'd love to extend the honor of having him join us. With that being said, we're going to continue to play on the rest of the video.
Idea.
Wow.
And in other words, they have the veneer of scholarship and peer review, but basically the only people that review the articles are people who already, adopt that idea.
Well, I didn't know that exactly.
Well,
I want to hear more about
right
this.
when it comes out. Just shoot it to me, and I'll let you know.
But
I'll let you know if my intuition is correct.
Stuff like that is why what we in the field, like my friend Adam Coleman uses the term a lot. I don't know who invented it, but pseudo scholarship.
Yeah,
it has the appearance or veneer in some way. But honestly, when you read,
and so I'd be remiss if I didn't pause once more to say this, because did I just hear Vocab Malone put himself in the same realm of a PhD scholar when he said that's why we in the field? What you mean we, Vocab? I know you know a little bit of Koine Greek, and I know you know a little bit of Hebrew, but what I do not know you for is speaking French. What you mean we, homie? You don't got a PhD.
this, I don't even think it has.
This doesn't even rise to that level.
They would, to them it does. But now again, we got to keep in mind any movement grows over time,
Sure.
and we've seen them become more sophisticated, nuanced.
Yeah.
So if I do this interview 5 years from now, some of it they might be more sophisticated by then.
So what are I think we covered 3.
2 more left.
2 more.
Second category, or we're going 5 from 1, are what they call the color passages.
Okay.
These are scriptures that they believe describe Israelites as black peoples.
All right.
And so the big one is with Jesus, whom most of them, when we're talking about one Westerners, call Yahweh Shai. Revelation 1:14 through 15. Revelation 1:14 through 15. And they zoom in on the idea of where it says that Jesus' hair was white like wool. They kind of morph that into
the Ancient of Days imagery from Daniel 7.
Yeah, they'll go back to Daniel 7 and they use that with Revelation and basically say Jesus had woolly hair. What people on earth have woolly hair? The so-called black man. And they'll say his feet were burned like bronze or brass. They'll say, what color is something when it gets burnt? I'll say black. So if his feet are black, what color is the rest of his body?
Right, even though it doesn't say black.
It doesn't.
Right.
The passage is describing the majesty and glory and even indeed deity of heavenly Jesus, not the ethnicity of earthly Jesus.
Right.
The whole passage is basically a glowing man. If you read it from start to finish,
and that's
okay. So let me just say this, because I see a lot of sloppy scholarship coming from Vocab. So let me just say this. While I will agree that the goal, generally speaking, with regard to anthropomorphizing various images in the Bible is to, fill us with the majesty, glory, and awe of the Creator. And so the Creator is depicted in several places as a man seated on a high and exalted throne. And the anthropomorphisms attached to him is to give us the ability to see the divine through our own lens as we are. I'm going to say that again. The imagery in the anthropomorphisms in the Bible is to see the divine through our own lens. In other words, to see the divine as we are, not just as human beings, but literally as we are, because he is speaking and has always spoken to the children of Israel. And while I note, as an honest scholar, I note and observe that the feet of the burnished brass or copper, it could denote glowing, but notice that y'all didn't really comment on that woolly hair, a feature notoriously associated with black people. And so if I could crystallize this concept clear for you, Michael Heiser and Vocab Malone, because you are clearly struggling with it, the goal of the anthropomorphized images of the Creator that we see in the Bible is to cause us to see the divine through our own lens as we are, because we are, in a sense, part of the divine. So the anthropomorphic visions of God revealed to the children of Israel is always a God that reflects the look of the children of Israel. And so, in reflecting on that, not only are we going to talk about alloys that are burnt, that are the color of brass, copper, dark alloys, but we're also going to talk about that woolly hair. So I get that, skin tone and flesh tone may not necessarily be the main idea and feature of the anthropomorphized image of the divine, but certainly that woolly hair is speaking about black people. I don't care what the hell you say.
His feet are glowing. Is what's happening.
And that's stock description of supernatural beings, just across the board in antiquity.
But they do a thing where they say, well, if something's burnt, it's black.
Right. Even though Hebrew has a word for black that isn't the word for burnished bronze. Okay.
Well, there in the Greek, Greek with the Revelation passage, the sense of the word is like that they're. My understanding of the sense is not that they have been burned. It's like some completed process. It's like they're in the process of burning, along those lines. But
right.
But
I'm just thinking of Daniel, not the Revelation stuff.
The Daniel 7:9.
I'm thinking of the source text. What's the other?
Jeremiah 14:2 we looked at before the show is another one. Although one camp, Sakari, is getting away from that because they're even realizing
this
how
is
bad
the one where
it
it kind of depends on the translation too, if I recall.
King James uses an old understanding of the word black. I got it right here actually. So if you look, there's a dictionary from 1755, Samuel Johnson and John Walker.
Okay.
Dictionary of the English language, and what it says is here that the word black, this is under the entry for black, can mean of the color of night, dark, cloudy of countenance, sullen, horrible, wicked, dismal, mournful.
Right. And so what does Jeremiah 14:2 say?
Black unto the ground is what it says, but they're using
black
it
unto the ground.
Yeah, they're using it in the sense of mourning into the ground. And if you look at most translations now, they'll say something like that. They say
like they're
an honest scholar has no problem admitting what they believe is true or untrue. I do not believe that every single reference to the color black as being presented through anthropomorphisms in interactions with the children of Israel is a reflection of skin. I don't feel or believe that Jeremiah chapter 14, that reference that they were black to the ground, that's describing skin color. My scholarly knowledge teaches me that is describing a spiritual estate, a fallen estate of a people who are morally and spiritually decadent, on the decline. That is the notion behind they are black to the ground. It is not a reference to their skin color. But what we're not going to do is act like the other plethora of references to skin color or black is not a reference to someone's skin tone. We're not going to do that. Because if you try to do that, I invite you to come on my platform and try to do that. Let's see you try to get away with that one. You see, one thing I always tell people about people saying things and teaching and being able to gallivant with their ideas and scholarship. I compare scholars having discourse among their peers that agree with them and scholars who write books. I compare many of them, and remember, I'm a fellow author myself, right? I compare many of them to the boxing gym. I love boxing. And I compare them to people who are in the gym alone, shadow boxing. Because virtually any scholar could say anything and get away with it virtually when you're speaking to people who, first and foremost, might be yes men. Or are from among your peer review community, and they clearly have the same bias, motives, and agendas as you. And as such, I understand that. But I gotta tell you, it's called shadow boxing. And everybody looks like a skilled boxer. Everybody looks like Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather when they shadow boxing by themselves. It's not until you get in the ring with someone and spar with someone other than yourself that we know who you are and what you are built and made of. And I openly challenge you to get in the ring with me on the very issues that you presented in this live stream.
They're bowed in mourning.
It's not the color of Judah's skin.
They're bowing in grief, toward the ground. Okay.
In the Hebrew,
and the King James uses the word black there because of this dictionary.
Right. It's a verb, not an adjective. The actual Hebrew, I don't know if the word there. I don't. But that's the word that's in the text.
Kadru.
Yeah.
Is what I'm looking at.
It's a verb.
Yeah.
It's not an adjective.
That's interesting.
So the black into the ground, it fails at the
it describes an activity, not a quality. Is
right.
What you're getting at. Yeah.
So one of the camps, Sakari, who is, I think you can describe them safely as a radical One West camp. They do the whole boot kissing thing. We haven't even talked about that, but that's where they have people bow down to them and kiss their shoes in compliance with passages that or what sometimes scholars call the submission motif of lick the dust and all that.
Right.
Sakari engages that heavily, and yet
I just gotta tell you, I just gotta tell you, and I just gotta say, while I don't certainly engage in interacting with white people on the street and arguing with them on the Bible, and after having beaten them up intellectually with the Bible, I don't engage in telling them to get on their knees and kissing my boots. It's not my thing. But I do gotta tell you something. After 400 plus years of rape, murder, and pillaging, after 400 plus years of lynching, after 400 plus years of white people in this country particularly treating us like animals, I gotta tell you, I'm not bothered one bit when I see a One West camp or group debating Europeans and asking them to kiss their feet when they acknowledge the truth of their words. I gotta tell you, and I'm gonna say it with my chest out, I'm not bothered by that one bit, because that's the least you got coming to you for putting your hands on God's people.
Yet they're even getting away from this argument. They're no longer employing it. So some of the One West camps are realizing this is not a great argument after all. But
right. So what's the remaining category?
So here's the big one. Prophetic characteristic passages. I don't know what to call them. Maybe you can help me come up with a bit different name. But they're passages that they would say describe the character or traits, not physically, something else about them, of the true Jews, of Israelites. Conditions they might be in. And the big one I mentioned at the end of the last show is Deuteronomy 28. That is what we call the locus classicus of Hebrew Israelism.
Right.
Deuteronomy 28.
Do you have any part of that to quote?
Well, the big verse out of Deuteronomy 28 is verse 68.
Okay.
And of course, you more than well know this, it's essentially stock for a treaty. The covenant treaties.
Yeah.
And so
blessings and cursings and witnesses and all that stuff.
they're not even using the passage in the right way. They're looking at it as like it's some kind of prophetic thing of here's what's going to happen, but it's more just like if you don't do this, here's what will happen. They use it in a strange way. I don't think they're justified in their use of it.
Okay.
Verse 68 says this though: the Lord will take you back in ships to Egypt by a route that I said you would never see again. There you will sell yourselves to your enemies as male and female slaves, but no one will buy you. Now I'm using the Christian Standard Bible. I usually use the ESV, but this fit in my bag better.
Okay.
They use the KJV because one part it says, not that you will sell yourselves, but you will be sold. But let me show you how they use this passage, Dr. Heiser.
Right.
The Lord will take you back in ships to Egypt. They'll say those are slave ships. So the ships are literal. And a lot of times they'll like just act like the passage says slave ships.
So God is basically saying, hey, you know, I delivered you from Egypt, but if you violate the terms of the covenant, I'm going to put you on ships and take you right back.
But they say Egypt means house of bondage, not literal Egypt. Now, as a response, I sometimes show them verse 6 as.
All right, guys. So I got to stop the video again to add some more commentary because what's interesting about what Vocab Malone says is that these two are something else. Like they really have problems with reading comprehension. These two are something else because it's coming like you really have problems with reading comprehension. Because now it's vocab that has issues with the association of the ships that God says the children of Israel will be placed on in Deuteronomy 28:68 in slavery. He doesn't understand the correlation. So, as we helped out Dr. Heiser, we're going to help you out. But first, we're going to replay what you said for Cloudy, just as we extended that same respect to Dr. Heiser. And for the sake of Cloudy, we're going to watch as you repeat the same mistake. I mean, say what you said again. And then I'm going to show you why the slave ships in Deuteronomy 28:68, why the ships are associated with slave to the extent that we can call them slave ships.
Not that you will sell yourselves, but you will be sold. But let me show you how they use this passage, Dr. Heiser.
Right.
The Lord will take you back in ships to Egypt. They'll say those are slave ships. So the ships are literal. And a lot of times they'll like just act like the passage says slave ships.
So God is basically saying, hey, you know, I delivered you from Egypt, but if you violate the terms of the covenant, I'm going to put you on ships.
I usually use the ESV, but this fit in my bag better.
Okay.
They use the KJV because one part it says, not that you will sell yourselves, but you will be sold. But let me show you how they use this passage, Dr. Heiser.
Right.
The Lord will take you back in ships to Egypt. They'll say those are slave ships. So the ships are literal. And a lot of times they'll like just act like the passage says slave ships.
So God is basically saying, hey, you know, I delivered you from Egypt, but if you violate the terms of the covenant, I'm going to put you on ships and take you right back.
But
okay, so we heard enough. And I mean that literally and figuratively. Because when it comes to you two so far in the last hour and 50 minutes, we literally heard enough from y'all. How simple can a mind be? I'm going to unshare my screen for a moment, and I'm going to pull up Deuteronomy 28. And so, as you mentioned earlier, I deal with data. A little bit of data, to be humble. And to quote you verbatim, there are some that deal with a little bit of data, like Zion Lexx. And you actually thought you was giving me a compliment. And that be the problem with a lot of people like you that don't realize that because you don't use the word nigger in public, And because you don't blatantly disrespect us in public, you don't really see why it is that we call you out for being very racist. You started off earlier in mentioning my name in attempting to putting some respect on me. I say attempt because when you mention my name and you mention my scholarship, we ain't talking about a little bit of data. In fact, we were talking about a little bit of nothing. And you actually thought, and I'm not afraid to, to call Zion's name and, give him credit. He actually deals with a little bit of data. Racism is so subconsciously ingrained in your mental process and thinking that you don't even realize that what you style as a compliment is still very disrespectful. But I'm going to still hold to my honor by helping you. Because after all, that is what I do. I help people to learn to understand the Bible. And so in this moment, you're just one more person that I'm helping. And so the text reads, and let's just take the English off, right? Because we don't need the English over here. Let's just deal with what the text says. Make that a little bigger. So the 68th verse says, "We heshivka Adonai mitzraim ba'aniot. We heshivka, and you will be caused to brought Adonai or Yehovah, and the Lord will cause you to be brought Mitzrayim, Egypt, Ba'aniot, by way of ships." Baderek asher amarti leka, by the way of which I said to you, Lo tisof od lirota, you shall no longer see it again. Wehit makartem, and you shall offer yourselves, and you shall sell yourselves. There, Sham, le'oveka, le'avdim, we'lish pachot. And you shall sell yourselves there to your enemies as male, la'avadim, we'lish pachot, and female slaves. And so to help you out this time, Vocab Malone, the reason why we take this passage literal is because the Creator says, Baderek ashir amarti leka lotosif od lirota, by the way of which I said to you, you shall no longer see it, or you shall never see it again. That's mentioned explicitly in the book of Deuteronomy, when the Creator tells us that we should not go back to Egypt as a command from the Almighty. And he told us that the Egypt that we know we would never see again, and that we should never return there. And so due to that mention and correlation to that historical event, because You, Vocab Malone, certainly believe that the Exodus is a historical event. And so when the Creator made the correlation to that historical event, we know we are speaking of something literal. And what's interesting here is you seem to have a hard time framing and understanding and contemplating how the Bible can use figurative language to describe something that is literally going to happen as a matter of history. Because, Dr. Heiser, like, on the one hand, they say it's literal, then they say it's figurative. I mean, it can't be both. You got to pick one. What Bible you reading? What Bible you reading? Because the same verse you just read that described the spiritual and moral decadence of the children of Israel, that they are black to the ground, that was clearly a figurative statement that described the historical reality, a literal reality. So then why do you speak with a forked tongue? Why do you play? Why do you act as if the text cannot describe something that is going to happen as a matter of literal occurrence through figurative language? Let's keep going. And so the next thing I'll point out for you is why we regard the ships mentioned in the 68th verse as slave ships. I'll read again. We heshivka Adonai Mitzrayim ba'aniot baderek asher amarti leka lo tosif od lerota wehit makartem sham leovecha la'avdim wenishpachot ve'en koneh. And the verse says, and the Lord will cause you to be brought Mitzrayim. Some people translate that as the Lord will cause you to be brought back to Egypt. Then it says, Ba'aniot, by way of ships. Baderek asher amarti leka, by the way of which I said to you, lo tisof, lo tosif, slika, od lurota, you shall no longer see it again. Wehit makartem, and there you shall offer yourselves, or and there you shall sell yourselves, leoveka, to your enemies, laavdim relish pachot, as male and female slaves. So vocabulary. When the text says, the Lord will cause you to be brought back to Mitzrayim by the way or road or path by which I said you shall not go there or see it again, and there you shall offer yourselves to your enemies as male and female slaves. The reason why, respectfully, we can refer to these ships as slave ships, because the mode of transportation which took us to the place where we would be offered up as slaves, just as the transatlantic slave trip bears the title slave ship, because when we docked, we were offered up as slaves. And as such, the boats are referred to as slave ships. And so I'm not even going to play the remainder of the video. I've said enough to invite a response from either you, Dr. Heiser, Vocab Malone, or better yet, both of you. And if you got the, I almost said it, but I'm going to find a way to say it, testicular fortitude to respond to me, I'll be here waiting. Until then, I'm out. This is what we do. Catch y'all later. Peace.
Still haven't tried the Locklicious all natural hair care product line? Well, let's hear what the Lock community has to say about it.
I love how it sprays and how it fills, you guys. Like, it feels so good. And it smells amazing, you guys.
The Lock and Twist moisturizer was really good for me. The hydration mist was phenomenal.
This is bomb, baby. I was really impressed, kind of blown away, and I think that if you're struggling, definitely go check them out.
And check out the 5-star reviews on our website. So, what are you waiting for? Go to locklicious.com to start treating your crown like royalty.
All right, family. For those of you who are still here, do remember that we have Hebrew classes going all week. We are resetting our Hebrew class. We have classes that start brand new this week, Mondays and Fridays. We have a Torah class on Tuesdays, and we hold a Kabbalah class on Thursdays and an advanced Hebrew class on Wednesdays. We have a biblical history class that starts Mondays and Fridays. We are kicking it back. Tomorrow night, we're doing a special expose on the true origins of Ashkenazic Jewry, otherwise known as the bulk of European Jewry. And in tomorrow night's live stream at 8 p.m., I'll be talking about demonstrating and showing the biblical origins and the historical origins of the people who self-identify as Ashkenazic Jews. I will take you to the historical record and show you the very reference to the very first European Jew being described as an Ashkenazic Jew. And I'll show you in that same historical reference that it originally applied to the kingdom of the Khazarians, otherwise known as the Khazar Empire. We'll be looking at the Kuzari, which is the source text for the Khazar conversion. We'll be looking at the Khazar correspondence, which is the original source, even for the Kuzari. We'll be looking at the 13th tribe. We'll be looking at Shlomo Sands, the invention of the Jewish people. This is all happening tomorrow night at 8 p.m. You can register at zionlex@gmail.com to get into that lecture. That's going to be a powerful lecture. See you guys tomorrow. Check back then. Until then, family, Lada Tov and Shalom. And so these are all our classes. If you want to get into tomorrow night's lecture, just make sure you email me at zionlex@gmail.com. This is my website, guys. You can find all the information pertaining to virtually everything that I do in our community online right on my website, zionlex.com. And it is there that you can gain access to much of the things that you see me talking about online and or promoting. Again, if you'd like to be in tomorrow's class, email me at zionlex@gmail.com. With that finally being said, guys, have a great night. Shalom.